And the last question is?
Last question, yes. The other subject is, as you know, there is an ongoing crisis in Syria now,
Yes.
and it's a fact that socialism and materialism has played a great part in the Arab states to distance them from the true essence of Islam. That's why there is so much conflict between Arab states, and even Muslims from different sects are enemies against one another. This socialism and materialism is a fitna, corruption, because it's against the Quran. How can the Arab states free themselves of socialism, and what should be done to educate the Muslims on the facts of creation, that Allah is the only creator and matter has no power on its own?
With the Jazakallah khairan, it's a very, very important question, and it is only healthy to talk about what befalls, basically what is going on in the Muslim world. Syria is but one of these areas where we have devastation and senseless killing of innocent people. When communism emerged, it did basically split the world almost into two major blocks. Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc, the communist countries, were on one side, the Western countries led by the United States on the other. They continued to fight amongst themselves, but not immediately in their own countries, but the fight took place in Korea and Vietnam, and even the two Yemens at the time. The crisis reached all the way almost to the shores of the United States, the Cuba affairs during the time of Kennedy. So the world was basically witnessing this rift because of the advancement of communism. Ultimately, it failed. The Soviet Union collapsed, and there was, in fact, this search for the new enemy, if you will. A different paradigm to explain the relation between the different countries. Samuel Huntington wrote about the clash of civilizations. Yeah. The bottom line, the civilizations do not clash. The cultures do not clash. They don't have a will of their own, in as much as matter, in terms of evolution, matter does not have a will of its own. It cannot will to have life. It was, sterile. You have leaders who make a decision to go to war. So the Arab world, the Muslim world, had its own share of the changes that took place in the world, and they have adopted ideologies that were foreign to their heritage. They were foreign to their religion. They were foreign to their culture. And Syria is but one of these countries where they have adopted a specific form of government. Socialism, Syria suffered from poverty. They did not do very well economically. But the issue ultimately, people could survive hardship. It's basically whether the human being was respected in these regimes. No, the human being was not respected. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dignified the human being. There is recognition of the humanity, and these regimes did not recognize their own people. To send aeroplanes, jet fighters to hit your own people, to kill the innocent is definitely senseless. It shows basically a dead heart. Before, definitely the brain is there, but it's going in the wrong direction. It's quite unfortunate what these regimes are doing to their people. The dictatorship, and it was forced. It was forced socialism, forced secularism. In fact, Fahmi Huwaidi from Egypt wrote once a book about extremist secularism, in the sense of you force basically a regime, a way of life that is foreign to the life of the people. This is what we are witnessing in many of these countries. The nation state in itself, definitely, it's not our own invention. There is, we have that which is shared, that which is common. There's really no real difference between, let's say, Algeria and Tunisia. There's no real difference between Egypt and Sudan. They used to be, one region, one area. Then right. So all these countries have reflected the division which is not genuine. It's, you know, Islam preaches unity,
Right.
and these governments and these regimes reflect disunity, separation, and this resulted in definitely many social ills, economic, and ultimately they don't have real power, and this invited foreign invaders and
Yes.
the
All
rest of
these
this.
ideologies, yeah.
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 Yes.
Inshallah.
Ideologies, yes.
Yes. Go ahead, Jerry. Yeah.
That is a very good point. And I'm glad that was brought up, because when you look at the wars, I know you mentioned Vietnam and Cuba and Korea, and these were wars of ideologies, and they were fought with violence. And we have the same thing going on in today's world, that we have a lot of wars that are going on. People are killing people over ideologies. You cannot fight an ideological war with violence and with machinery. The only way to combat an ideology is through education. That is the only way that you can get past either the violence or the evils of ideologies. You can't do it by killing people. The United States was in Vietnam and Korea, and in Vietnam they bombed the entire seaboard, and nothing changed. They didn't change anything because it was an ideology they were fighting. They weren't fighting another physical force. They were fighting the ideologies of an area, of a country. To combat ideologies that are wrong or that are immoral, you have to combat them with ideologies that are righteous, that are moral, that are integral, that can be educated to people. We can go back to the $1.3 trillion we're spending on war here. If they took that $1.3 trillion, they could set up schools halfway around the world and to help educate people, not re-educate people, but to put the resources there for these people to get an education, rather than having to fight and maybe 5 or 6 years old not being able to go to school. They could actually have enough knowledge and the education to go with that to be able to see what they're doing may be immoral. But by fighting ideological wars with machinery and killing people over ideologies is not going to solve an ideological war. Violence is only going to bring more violence. And until I think more people in the world can grasp that idea, we're going to have wars.
Yes.
One aspect is that the Security Council is not a democratic institution, and as such, you know, Russia and China, for example, at this particular stage, threaten with so-called veto right. You know, any decision, any serious decision vis-a-vis Syria will be faced by these two countries. It could be the other way around. Sometimes the United States itself vetoes resolution, and as long as these countries can wage the veto in the face of that which should be the decision, that institution will be crippled by its own design, as long as it is not democratic and it does not really represent the will of that United Nations.
Yes, because the problems for Syria originated from there's a Ba'ath Party regime, which is Arab socialism, which is Marxism. Yeah. And then look, Gaddafi regime, the same thing, Arab socialism, Marxism, Darwinism, materialism. In Egypt, Nasser time, there was Arab socialism, Marxism, Darwinism, materialism. George Habash was a Marxist. In Afghanistan, there was a communist revolution. Wherever we look in the Islamic world, this happened. And inshallah, with unity of the Muslims and returning to the essence of Islam, inshallah, the problems will be solved. And
inshallah.
We hope these days are coming, inshallah. That was a beautiful conversation. We're coming to the end of this conversation. Can we have your last messages for Turkish public and Islamic world, inshallah?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, it's as a message to the Turkish people and beyond, to the Muslim world and beyond that. In fact, when I met, as a child, I used to see the Turkish pilgrims returning from Mecca. When they returned from Mecca, by land, they used to stop in Jerusalem. And I remember as a child, they would park their buses in our neighborhood, and we used to say Haji Guzal for those Turkish pilgrims. It reflects a moment when Muslims basically had free access to Al-Aqsa Mosque and to Jerusalem. Today we are, we don't suffer like the Syrian people immediately in the terms of the number of casualties, but we continue to live under occupation. Our case is 60 years old, more than 60 years old, and we still look for justice. It's not being against anyone else, but we also would like our own humanity to be recognized. We are, a people like all other people. We would like to live in peace with everyone else, and we would like, that people all over the world to enjoy this justice. But it means also that we will work together towards that end. One is encouraged to keep up the good work and to go back to the Islamic teachings, because in these teachings we will find basically the source for peace and tranquility and justice for everyone.
Inshallah.
MashaAllah. So it was a pleasure and honor to have you.
Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you, Professor, for your very good words, and thank you, Jerry, for your valuable comments, and thank you, Oktar, inshallah. So we come to the end of our show today, and we had a very great interview with Mr. Professor Mustafa Abu Sway. On behalf of everyone here in Istanbul, would like to say have a good day and God bless you.